I've either got to find the excuse me, let me start that over. I've either got to leave the past behind or find myself a way to lose my mind. I'm ready for a change of any kind. For better or worse, I'll take whatever comes first. As you can probably tell listening to this show, as Jeff can tell from real life, and as my wife likes to tell me constantly, I can relate anything to pro wrestling. In fact, when my dad and my uncle told me about a week ago that they were building a stadium right across from where they filmed Field of Dreams for the White Sox and the Yankees to play in, I said, well, if AEW is going to do a stadium show, that's where they should do it to start with. Right in the heart of the Midwest, in the Field of Dreams, because AEW is the organization of the wrestling fans' dreams, and it was serendipitous the way everything came together. The whole thing is like a dream come true for Cody, for Nick and Matt Jackson, for Tony Khan, for Jeff, for me, for every fan of good pro wrestling. But I can also relate everything to music. And what I started out quoting was Sons of the Desert's Whatever Comes First, because that's how I felt last year about professional wrestling. Jeff and I had already kind of strayed a little bit from WWE, trying to find a sweet spot where we can enjoy pro wrestling, you know, New Japan, a little bit of Ring of Honor, Impact, especially back when it was TNA and it was the great broken Matt Hardy. But then, I think I've told the story on the air before, is that I saw that TakeOver was coming to Chicago. It was going to be not that far away from me for the first time ever, at least not, it wasn't a house show, and I wanted to go. And so I thought, well, we're going to TakeOver. I'll ask my friend if he wants to go. He did. And we decided, hey, we're going to go to WWE as well, since it's right the next night anyway in the same stadium. So we went to TakeOver, and then we went to Money in the Bank. That Money in the Bank is the last WWE show that I saw from start to finish until I went to Jeff's house and watched the Royal Rumble with him this year. I loved that show. I thought Money in the Bank 2018 was a great show. I thought the Money in the Bank's matches were both great. I thought AJ and Shinsuke finally gave us a close approximation of what we saw from them at Wrestle Kingdom 10. And I thought the Intercontinental title match was pretty good. I enjoyed ignoring the fuck out of Roman Reigns. And I loved watching Alexa Bliss cash in. And I thought, wow, this might be the show that gives me hope in WWE again. And then the very next night, they fucked it up, and I never looked back. So, in going to All In, it was a bit of a catharsis for me. It was a love letter to pro wrestling in a way that I thought I would never see again. It was a callback to the old school pay-per-views that I used to love as a kid, to shows like Super Brawl 2, to shows like SummerSlam 1990, shows like the shows that really got Jeff and my imagination going in pro wrestling, WrestleMania 3. Shows like ECW's Hardcore Heaven 97. Shows that I could really embrace full on with my love of pro wrestling. More importantly than that, it gave me permission. Not that I needed it, but I think something that my soul desired. It gave me permission to step away from the WWE completely. And I think that is all summed up by what Cody said in the post show, which was, no one, not one man, not one company, not one entity owns pro wrestling. We own pro wrestling. Now, I've read some critics recently, after AEW was announced, use that to say that Cody and the Young Bucks thought they owned pro wrestling. Anybody who listened to that promo and watched the video on YouTube, or the Being the Elite episode where they featured that, and took that away from what Cody said, is a fucking idiot. He was talking about that we, as wrestling fans, own pro wrestling. That is what AEW means. That is what All In meant to me, being there live, in that atmosphere, in that joy of wrestling fans, in that celebration, not only of pro wrestling, but of the love of pro wrestling and the history of pro wrestling. And before I turn it over to Jeff and welcome you all to the show, I'm going to quote one more song by a band I just saw live on Friday night. And it's something I thought about WWE for years and was finally able to put it to use September 1st, 2018. Well, I never saw it coming. I should have started running a long, long time ago. And I never thought I'd doubt you. I'm better off without you. More than you know. I'm slowly getting closer. I guess it's really over. I'm finally getting better. Now I'm picking up the pieces for spending all these years putting my heart back together. Because the day I thought I'd never get through, September 1st, 2018, WWE, is the day that I got over you. Welcome to Kingdom of Honor. This is your host, Sandman Shane Sabunia, the King of Expatriates, along with my good buddy Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I can't follow that.
Sir.
What's that?
I can't. This is your turn to talk, sir.
I can't follow that. What am I supposed to say? It was a great show. That's about all I can do to follow that.
Well, speaking of great shows, hopefully this will be one, but I, as Jeff knows, and as I've talked about on the show, have become kind of a regular listener to Busted Open. And
I'll be right back. My kid's crying. I'll be right back. Keep talking.
And they were talking last week. And, I don't follow social media. You guys all know that I don't follow Facebook a lot. I don't follow Twitter. Jeff is the social media ambassador for the Kingdom of Honor. And so I wasn't aware, although it doesn't surprise me knowing how cynical and fickle pro wrestling fans are, that a lot of people out there are blaming Ring of Honor's recent financial struggles on Matt Taven. And blaming Ring of Honor struggling on Matt Taven is like blaming, I don't know, it's like blaming Kool-Aid for not developing a Coca-Cola flavor and becoming more successful.
Well, it's like blaming 1995 WWE on Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
The product itself couldn't compare with the champion, so people tuned out. I mean, and I hate to say this because I think Ring of Honor is light years ahead of where WWE was in '95. They do have some weaknesses. I mean, the Briscoes, of course, are a strong point. Their relationship with New Japan is a strong point. Matt Taven and all the Kingdom are strong points, and of course, the Villain Club. Outside of that, they've got some one-off stars that put on some great matches, but they're building a promotion around people that nobody in the United States knows.
And they do that over and over again, seemingly every year, if not every, I mean, if not every year, it's at least every couple of years, because they can't keep people. And that's ridiculous, because out of Vince McMahon and the WWE and AEW with Tony Khan and Ring of Honor with Sinclair Media, which of those do you think has the least amount of money?
I would say Sinclair Media.
No, it's Vince McMahon.
Really?
Sinclair Media and Tony Khan and what's his dad's name? Shahir Khan or something?
Shahir Khan, yeah.
They are all multi-billionaires.
No, Vince
is not.
He's a billionaire.
He was. He's not anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think he's
I thought
700 millionaire or something.
I thought he had their most profitable year ever last year.
Well, sure, but he has to share that with all the other shareholders.
That's a good point. And he did just dump a bunch of his stocks.
He did, because he's starting the XFL.
Right.
Which we all know is going to be a raging success.
Well, yeah, as long as they tweak it. I mean, I don't know. It was bad last time around. But the thing about Ring of Honor is they've got the money to keep their stars. And they've proven it by being able to keep people like the Briscoes and Matt Taven and Marty Scurll. I mean, Marty Scurll's contract last we heard was up in April. He's still in Ring of Honor. So they can clearly keep the talent. They're just not spending it on the right people. I mean, I understand them losing the Elite. That made sense. Those guys had made up their mind after All In that they were gone and they were going to do their own thing, and kudos to them. But throughout history, people like Austin Aries and Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles and how many other people did they just let walk because they didn't want to pay them the money?
Yeah, exactly. And and that's the thing with Ring of Honor is you and I, one of our maybe our most powerful reaction coming out of All In was, so this is what the wrestling landscape can look like if there's cooperation.
Right. And
as soon as AEW was formed, Ring of Honor basically said, to hell with you guys.
Yep.
AEW wanted to work with New Japan. They wanted to work with Ring of Honor. They wanted to work with CMLL. They wanted to work with Impact. And they wanted to work with AAA. And out of those 5 major promotions, only AAA said, sure, we'll work with you. Ring of Honor could be what AEW is right now. Because they have the resources. They could have gone to TNT and gotten the same kind of deal that AEW got. They were the ones that actually produced Ring of All In. And they sat pat and just watched it all fall apart for them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't promote themselves. If you're not a pro wrestling fan, you don't know about Ring of Honor, and you're never going to know about Ring of Honor because they don't promote themselves. You have to have somebody, like I was to Jeff, introduce you to Ring of Honor. And that is not a way for a promotion to succeed. If you look at Ring of Honor, Jeff mentioned their strengths. I think one thing he didn't mention was their bookings. I think their booking is excellent as well.
Yeah, and Bully Ray gets a lot of credit for that. He's really done a great job booking that promotion.
Absolutely. But my major point with that is that he can do all that booking he wants to, and he can have all the talent in the world, but it's not going to matter if the fans don't know where to join you. I talked about the Field from Field of Dreams. Billy Ray can book it. That doesn't mean that people will come because they don't know what it is to come to, or that it even exists to come to. That's where Ring of Honor fails. They should be buying ad time during Raw. They should be buying ad time during SmackDown. They should be advertising all over the place on social media. They should be buying ad time on AEW. They should be pushing their partners, New Japan Pro Wrestling, to get their top stars on there every chance that they get. But when's the last time you saw Matt Taven appear on New Japan? When's the last time that you saw Bandito appear for New Japan? When's the last time you saw Mark Haskins appear for New Japan? Have you ever fucking seen Shane Taylor, who was violence at its finest, appear for New Japan? No. Matt Taven is one of the best heels in the business. He is... he and the Ring of Honor World title are working very well together to make each other. After Jay Lethal buried it with an 8-month title reign where he did nothing. And Matt Taven is improving every single fucking time out in all aspects of his game. So if you are one of those out there that's saying Matt Taven is bringing down Ring of Honor, or Ring of Honor, isn't that promotion that Matt Taven is the champion of it? Yes, he is. And he's a great world champion. Now, is Ring of Honor going to pick up once Rush wins the title from him at Death Before Dishonored if it happens? Quite possibly. But that has nothing to do with Matt Taven. It has to do with the way they've been pushing Rush, and that Rush has an international following from CMLL and AAA. Now, if that doesn't happen, then Ring of Honor will just go back to what they do every couple years, every year, and rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding, and they'll never get anywhere. And as much as I love the wrestling in that promotion, it's because they don't have the guts, they don't have the balls that AEW had to go out there and grasp what they wanted.
Well, I think, and you're probably going to disagree with me. I mean, Rush is an amazing talent. He really is. He's got quite a global following, but fans in the U.S. don't know who he is. And they're putting all their chips on a guy who's got charisma and spades, but can barely speak the language. That's not something that's going to be a long-term champion. And the way they have built him up, they've really painted themselves into a corner where he's going to be there next because they really have no one else. You know, I mean, they've spent so much time over the last year burying Dalton Castle ever since he returned from injury. You know, they've, of course, they did. Yeah, granted, they did lose some top tier talent, but the only one of that top tier talent that was in the main event picture was Cody. You know, they spent time pushing, and now, I mean, they're getting some momentum with a guy like Taven, who I just think needs to let him run with it. Let him run with the title. Let the Kingdom become what DX was, the stable that draws. You know, with them against Villain Enterprises consistently, night in, night out, that could easily be a feud that would draw big time.
Well, yeah, that's true if Marty's staying around. We still don't know if and when Marty's leaving the promotion. Maybe it would be nice for them to come out and say, you know, we signed into an extension, or, you know, but how do you put all your chips on Marty if you don't know that he's staying? And there are smart fans like us that are kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop, you know?
At this time, I think that if he was going to leave, he would have left in May when his contract was up. There's a reason why he's sticking around, and maybe it's he's comfortable there. Maybe he knows that he can become the face of the promotion. Maybe he's happy working in Japan and Ring of Honor. You know, I know he had said at one point that he never wanted to sign with a big company because he liked having the freedom of being an independent wrestler. And Ring of Honor has kind of given him that freedom by letting him go and work other places. So maybe that's just the lifestyle that Marty wants. It's possible. It's possible. I mean, the Bucks did it. 5 years ago, the Bucks did it when they were getting offers from everybody under the sun. They liked what they were doing, and they stayed with Ring of Honor. It's a possibility that maybe Marty just doesn't want to be in that big company atmosphere. He just wants to do his own thing, and he's happy doing his own thing. And I mean, and even if he is planning on leaving, they know how much time they have left on his contract. They could push the hell out of him right now because, let's face it, he's one of the top probably 10 or 15 talents in the world and is recognizable all around the world. He's the kind of guy that does sell out stadiums because people enjoy him so much.
I don't disagree with anything that you just said. What I'm saying is, unless the Ring of Honor fans have always been smart fans,
right?
And unless those fans know that Marty is there for the long haul, I don't think they would buy into a championship run for him with the world title.
I suppose they could look at it like Kyle O'Reilly and like Adam Cole, where it was just thrown on them last second to keep them there.
Exactly.
I mean, that does make sense, but at the same time, and I guess, when you look at those guys too, they really did put all their chips in on somebody that ended up leaving. But what was the reason they left? Did they leave because of money? Did they leave because of opportunity? Did they leave because they just didn't feel like they were respected in the position they were in? I mean, granted, it's worked out for both those guys in a much better situation now, where their talent has really kind of risen to the forefront, but after 3 years, would it have risen anyway? It's hard to say. I mean, they all made their decisions that they did, but you're right. I mean, if Ring of Honor can pony up and keep these guys, they should be ponying up and keeping these guys. Because their product is suffering by every couple of years bringing in guys like Roosh and guys like Mark Haskins, who both I think are just amazing wrestlers, but American fans don't know them that well. And they're both being pushed to the moon. And I think that's really hurting. The fact that Mark Haskins had a title shot, less than a month ago, is kind of embarrassing for the company when you've got other guys who are legitimate contenders already on your roster. Let Mark Haskins build a following, and now they're doing the same thing with Roosh. Yeah, Roosh is undefeated. Roosh gets a pop when he comes out, but how many people are really invested in Roosh because they've never seen him struggle?
Let me ask you something else. Relating to the same thing you're talking about. You mentioned having other guys that have been there and are established stars there, right?
Right.
So, let's say, I'm trying to think of a comparable wrestler for WWE.
The only other person that I could compare that in WWE, because WWE, yeah, we think they bury a lot of people. A lot of that's not because they're burying them, just because they have so much talent on the roster, it's hard to get them all on. But a guy that you could compare him to as far as coming in, making a huge splash, and getting a title shot right away would be AJ Styles.
Right. That's not what I was talking about. But yeah, I mean, keep talking because I'm still trying.
But that's not a fair comparison because AJ had made a huge name for himself in the States in Impact. He made a huge name for himself on the independent scene. He got even bigger when he went to Japan. So for him to come in and win wasn't that big of a deal because most of the United States fans already knew who he was. Granted, the WWE fans didn't, but the United States fans did. So it was a little bit easier, where Mark Haskins is a great British wrestler. Roosh is a great Mexican wrestler. You've got now we've got what's his name coming in, Joe Hendry coming in, who's a great British wrestler. But none of these guys really have a following in the U.S. So it's hard to throw the mantle on them and tell them to run with it when people can't get invested in people that they don't know just because they go on a little winning streak. It's not 1998 and Bill Goldberg anymore.
So let's pretend that Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder have held the WWE World Tag Team Championships for, let's say, 6 months. And then Dash Wilder gets a chance to go on The Bachelor. Do you think WWE would make that guy into a major star because he's on national television?
No.
You don't?
I don't. I think they would play...
Because I think that they would have, and I think that's what Ring of Honor fucked up with Kenny King.
See, now I take it the other way. I don't think that they would have. I don't think they would have allowed him to do it, first of all, because he's not a big enough star with them, so they think. But I've never seen them really get behind somebody like that because the last time they tried was Zack Ryder, who got some fame because of his YouTube stuff and his Twitter stuff. But then he got a little bit of he got a slight run with the U.S. title. They pumped him up for a little bit, having him tag with Cena, and then he was right back to the bottom of the barrel.
Right, but being a YouTube star is a lot different than being on national television on a major show like The Bachelor. There was a time where The Bachelor was the hottest show on network television.
That is true. I mean, I agree with you. They did really screw that up with him. I wish they would have gone more with his Impact gimmick than his. But what else was he doing? Why was he gone for so long? Outside of The Bachelor, even when he came back, he's been hit and miss on shows. Sometimes you see him, sometimes you don't.
That's exactly my point. If I had a star who was on a major network television show, rather than casually mentioning it once in a while, I would be playing that into his gimmick. I would be promoting the fuck out of it. And I would have them on every single show. He's, like you said, he's barely around. He has a world title shot in his back pocket. He's still never around. And now this coming Saturday he's wrestling in a match where he might lose that world title shot until Matt Taven loses the championship. What they're doing to Kenny King is unbelievably stupid. And this is a problem. I mean, and we just talked about how great Bully Ray is at booking, and I realize he just took over. But, and maybe it's something with Kenny King himself. Maybe Kenny King's schedule doesn't allow him, to do something. Maybe he's got something going on in his personal life. But this is really, a bad job by Ring of Honor to take somebody who's on a national broadcast television program and just completely ignore it. Impact didn't do that with John Hennigan when Hennigan was on Survivor.
No, they played that up every second they got.
Right.
Even after he was that Survivor, Angle had kind of died and he was back to being a heel, they still played it up. So I don't know. I mean, I see where you're coming from. They're missing a golden opportunity, and I don't watch The Bachelor, so I don't know how he was promoted on The Bachelor. But I do see where you're coming from, that they really screwed that up.
Right. See, they're great at getting talent. They're pretty good at building up talent. But the problem is they can't ever keep their talent. And if they can't keep their talent, what good is building it up? I may have lost Jeff again. So, that's the thing with Ring of Honor is, again, they're great at getting talent. They can be good at building it up. They're never great at building it up. And then when they do build somebody up, they're not able to keep them, and they leave for greener pastures. And that's been their story for a long time. And what happened with the Elite leaving and SCU leaving was just the most extreme example of it.
Well, and I think the Elite and SCU leaving and Best Friends leaving was really kind of more than an extreme example. The fact that they left to follow their dreams basically is what it was. They wanted to all be in on the ground floor of a new promotion. A promotion that had money back in it, a promotion that was going to go out and promote the hell out of them.
And who can blame them for that?
No one. Absolutely nobody. I mean, I get where they're coming from, too. And who knows how many of those people, because they all had their contracts up at the same time, which is really bad contract management by whoever's in charge of managing contracts. You can't have that many wrestlers' contracts expiring at the same time.
Well, what I've heard is that actually Cody's was up a couple months before, but he agreed to stick around until Final Battle. But that's still 6 out of the 7 guys.
Yeah, whose contracts were all up at the same, within months of each other.
Right.
Some of them were up January 1st, some of them were up in December, some were up in November. But the reality is that's a lot of contracts to have come due in such a short amount of time, and a lot of contracts that they would have had to pay big money for.
Right. And we have to remember that Punishment Martinez was also up in August of last year. So that's actually, and the Best Friends were signed to New Japan, not Ring of Honor. So we can't count them. But it was Marty and Cody were up in November. The Bucks, SCU, and Adam Page were all up in December, and then Punishment Martinez in August. So 8 guys, 8 major cogs of the promotion, their contracts were up in actually 9. I'm sorry, 9 major cogs of promotion. Their contracts were all up in the span of about 4 months.
Yeah, that's bad management. That's really bad management. Yeah, that's just bad management. I mean, even when you look at it, the Shield, their contracts weren't up all at the same time either. I mean, Seth Rollins was re-signed last year. Dean let his expire, but they tried to start re-signing him last year. And Roman just re-signed a new one. So, I mean, the WWE had a little bit better way of scattering their contracts than Ring of Honor clearly did.
Right.
It's just a lot of money and a lot of raises that you'd have to give out all at one time.
Right, and AEW. They've got a lot of guys signed to the same kind of thing where their contracts are be up at the same time, but those guys are mostly executives with the companies. It's not as terrible as you have your talent all set to walk at the same time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they that should have been better planning. Maybe Cody should have signed a 2-year contract, or maybe like Flip. Flip's another one who we would have thought would have been gone too, but he's got another year and a half on his contract.
Right.
So and now he's making major waves with his new mercenary character that I absolutely love, by the way.
I just looked it up, and Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful is reporting that Marty's contract is up in November. So basically, that was a 1-year contract.
Okay, it wasn't a 6-month like we thought it was?
Exactly.
All right, that makes sense then. All right, well, this whole rant that we got on for the last 30 minutes was supposed to be about how great Matt Taven is.
Yeah, and he is.
It kind of got a little off kilter there, but seriously, Matt Taven to me might be the best heel in the business, and every time he goes out there, he just proves it more and more.
I'll still back Jay White over him.
It's tough because those two are on such another level, and I think as much as I like Jay White, I think Matt gives a better promo. And a lot of that's because of the promotions there, and Jay White just doesn't have the opportunity to give promos like Matt does. But Matt, with his playing to the crowd and playing to his promo work, is light years ahead of where Jay White is. Jay White might be better in the ring than Matt, and he might be better at drawing heat without saying a word, Matt. But Matt, as an overall performer, I think is in a.
Let me ask you something. Could you see Matt Taven leading Bullet Club?
Absolutely.
Okay, you're out of your mind. Because I cannot see Matt Taven leading Bullet Club, but I could easily see Jay White leading the Kingdom, and that tells me that Jay is an all-around better performer. I think he was better in the ring than Taven was before he even left Ring of Honor. And I think
I'm not going to disagree.
I think he's better. I think he's better within the ring. I think he's better with his strategy. I think he's better just conveying an overall disdain to the world that Matt Taven does. I think Matt
Yeah,
Taven's getting a
Matt
lot
uses-
better. I enjoy Matt Taven's character, but there are times that I don't believe Matt Taven's character, and I'll believe Jay White's character.
I guess I view Matt Taven more like a Kenny Omega in 2015, where he was, really that junior heavyweight who just kind of became the leader of Bullet Club, and he made his mark with what he had. If Taven was put in a similar situation, he would be able to perform at that level as well, and eventually get up to where Kenny.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to walk in and be the greatest leader of Bullet Club ever, but I am saying that he is definitely in that position where he could easily grow into that mold, and you can tell just by the way he literally resurrected the Kingdom and made them one of the best parts of Ring of Honor. He took two essentially unknowns in Vinny and TK, and those guys are top flight stars, if you ask me.
I think Vinny is. I'm still not sold on TK. I think TK is getting better, but I'm still not sold on him.
Yeah, I'm not. He's not a. I could see him with a television title run.
I could see him with a television title run. I could also see him being the next Test. So, it's kind of.
That's true.
It's kind of
yeah.
up in the air with him.
I didn't even think of that. I was looking too much at the positive. But no, I mean, I could. And
let's not get it twisted. Test had a decent career, but was he ever really a star?
I think a lot of that was timing and angles. Like, he never really got into that one great angle. They tried really hard with his marriage to Stephanie stuff, but that push really ended up going to Triple H when it should have went to Test.
He still had some big stuff that year, though, and he had some big stuff after that. He just was never able to put it all together, and part of that was probably the drugs too.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, that does play a part into it.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not trying to throw cold water on it, because yeah, I'm a big Matt Taven fan. I think he's a great world champion. I think he's, like I said, I think he's getting better every time out, and I see in him the potential for what you already see him as, is the difference.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, like Jay White, I still think Jay White is much, much better than Matt in the ring. I think Jay White has got everything down, and considering he's, about 10 years younger than Matt, he's really on another level. His psychology, how fluid he is. I mean, he's like seamless from move to move. And he's believable in what he does, and he's able to just make everybody hate him just by his presence. And I don't think Matt has that yet. Matt has to rely a lot more on his mouth and what he says to draw heat. But he is, in that respect, he is much better at it than Jay White is. So they both have their part that makes them better than the other one. But I just think overall, I think Matt is a little bit more well-rounded as being a heel. Because if Jay White didn't move the way he did and didn't make people hate him, he could easily be a face. Easily. I can't see that on Matt. Matt just screams. You were
last week that he's going to be a babyface by the end of the year.
Was I?
Yeah.
Huh.
You were talking about how the way the Kingdom is going, you could easily see the Kingdom and Matt Taven leading them as a babyface by the end of the year. I
guess you're right. I could see them as the Kingdom, but I think Matt's more. He's not built to be a face. He's built to be that tweener type guy. Where Jay White is so technically sound and so fluid in the ring that he could easily become a face and not look back. Does that make any sense at all?
No, I kind of get what you're saying, but that doesn't mean I agree with what you're saying. I feel like Jay White is perfectly cast in Ring of Honor. I mean, in New Japan.
Oh yeah.
I can't see him as being a babyface in New Japan. I can see him
Not
going back to
now.
Ring of Honor being a babyface, or going to AEW and being a babyface. But I can't see him in New Japan being a babyface, and maybe part of that is because that organization just doesn't change allegiances very often.
Well, and not only that, but the fans, New Japan fans and the Japanese fans are so much wiser. They don't get fooled by a guy helping a little old lady across the street like American fans do. American fans will flip and flop. I mean, how many times has Jericho turned heel, turned face, turned heel, and they buy it every time, no matter what he does.
Well, it's because he's Jericho.
But he's also a natural heel too. He's so good as a heel, but people buy into him no matter what he does. Now, I don't think he would have been able to do that had he been in Japan his entire career, because the Japanese fans are they're smarter to that kind of thing. They don't let you push somebody down their throat and say, okay, this guy's a good guy now.
Yeah, but the thing is that even if it's a situation where the crowd is begging for it, New Japan doesn't usually do it. You know, I mean, it's probably been 2.5 years since Okada should have turned heel, and he still hasn't. It's probably been 1.5 years since Yoshihashi should have turned heel, and he still hasn't.
Yeah.
And part of that is simply that they build and they build and they build and they reward long-term fan interest.
Yeah.
More than just pulling the trigger as soon as it becomes possible to do so.
Just to make a quick T-shirt sale.
Right.
Now, listen to this. Jay White, he's 26 years old. He's 6'1", 220 pounds. Matt Taven is 34, so 8 years difference. 6'2", 219 pounds.
Okay.
Now, when you look at Jay White to me looks like a much, much bigger man than Matt Taven. But they're essentially the same height and same weight.
You said 230 versus 219?
220 versus 219.
Oh, 220. Okay, yeah, I would have thought Jay White was. I would have thought Jay White was 230, not 220.
Yeah, I was thinking 230, 235. He seems like he's much thicker than Jay White, than Matt Taven, and there's only 1 inch difference between the two. Yeah, Jay's 6'1", Matt is 6'2". I guess I'd have to see the two side by side.
I feel like that White's weight might be real and Taven's might be gimmicked a little bit.
Yeah, because Matt does look a lot smaller than that.
And remember that a year ago, Matt was the CMLL middleweight champion.
Well, that makes sense. 219, if they do it like WWE used to, 220 was the cutoff.
Right, but if they do it like New Japan does, or like
MLW,
or 205 Live, then he would have been more like the 200 range. You know.
Right. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting to see that they're that close in size.
Yeah, but, and you know and that's another thing I want to say is that I mentioned CMLL. Well, that to me was the first time that I looked at Matt Taven and said, that guy's a fucking star. When we watched the CMLL show last year,
yeah,
and he and Roosh were partners, and then he turned on Roosh at the end of it. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was what kind of started sparking my interest. Then I started watching the work that he was doing with the Kingdom, and the guy just blew me away. He is so good on the mic that I think he's very underrated on the mic. I'm not a fan of his catchphrase, but that's neither here nor there. That's probably where that extra 8 years experience comes in. I mean, in another 8 years, will we be having this discussion about whether Matt Taven was as good as Jay White at 34? Probably not. Because Jay White is so much smoother and so much more technically sound and just an overall better storyteller. And it could be, the Japan style versus the American style. It could be, the fact that Jay is given the time to actually tell a story, where a lot of Matt's matches are 18, 19, 20 minutes. So it could be a lot of that. But I personally, just watching them side by side, I think Jay White technically is 10 years ahead of his time.
Yeah.
He's just that good.
Doc has been saying a lot on Twitter recently. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but that Jay White is the best young star in the business, and that's
Yeah, I'd
unquestionable.
agree. I'd
But
agree with that.
but right,
Well,
right.
maybe
I think the only one I think the only one you could argue that with
MJF.
would be MJF. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
though, and Alexander Hammerstone.
and we'll see what happens at All Out with Hangman Page, because a year ago I would have said that about Hangman. But what I was going to say is that I think that Jay White is the best young star I've seen at his age since Cody. Because I felt after SummerSlam 2009 that Cody was going to become a star. WWE fucked it up like they usually do, but
Right.
to me, Cody was always better than Ted DiBiase when the rest of the world
Oh,
thought DiBiase
absolutely.
was the star.
DiBiase he was more of a he had better he just oozed charisma where Cody kind of had to force it a little bit. Another guy that I think we can't overlook for great young stars is Alexander Hammerstone. I mean, he's only 28,
Yeah, absolutely.
and he might be my favorite part of MLW right now.
More than MJF, huh?
The whole dynasty thing I just love. I'm even Richard Holiday. I'm a real big fan of his as well.
Speaking of MLW, did you see who they lost now?
No.
Tony Schiavone has signed a full-time contract with AEW now.
Give me a break. Come on, Tony. You just came back long enough to screw over Jim Cornette and then you leave? Come on. Just a week ago, we were talking about him signing long-term with MLW.
Seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. He literally just came back long enough to screw over Cornette.
Well, no. Remember, Cornette said he didn't have a contract. He was just asked to do it, so he was happy to help out.
Oh,
so,
okay, yeah.
So I'm not sure
that
that's
makes
the
sense.
case, but if it was, I'm sure that Cornette screwed over Tony before too. So
Yeah, more than likely, Cornette has a tendency to do that to people. That's funny that he's gone now too. And you know, one thing I remember when we were talking about it when we first started watching this, and we kind of crash watched the first year and a half. But Rich Bocchini has come a long way from where he was in when he first started with Tony Schiavone. I think him working with Cornette has really ramped his game up, and he's gotten a lot better at what he does now.
oh yeah, he's absolutely great. I love how he plays a bit of a straight man, but
Right.
he's not a complete straight man.
Yeah, he's a lot like, and I hate to bring the comparison because you're comparing one guy to another, and the other guy is like a legend, but Kevin Kelly. He reminds me a lot of Kevin Kelly to what Don Callis and Kevin Kelly are, where Kevin is that straight man too to Don Callis's constant jokes.
Right, but he also is but he also gets his own stuff in sometimes, and he also yeah, I can see that. And I really wish that. This is hard to say because I think this is probably where he got his start and where he got his best experience. But I really wish Kevin Kelly had never worked for WWE, because it made me look down on Kevin Kelly when he was signed by Ring of Honor originally, and now he's my favorite commentator.
The guy that I really miss is Matt Stryker. I want to hear him on the mic again. I thought he was very talented, very good at announcing.
It is one of the worst talent uses in professional wrestling today that Josh Matthews is the play-by-play guy for Impact, while Matt Stryker does the backstage interviews.
And he doesn't even do all of them. He wasn't even on the last show.
Right.
You know, so maybe I know he was with MLW for a while, and I don't know what happened there, but I thought him and Tony made a great combination.
Yeah, that was very brief, though, wasn't it?
couple of weeks. It was like they brought him in for one TV taping because within 4 weeks he was gone. He was on the mic for 2 weeks, and then he was doing backstage stuff for 2 weeks.
Right, because he debuted at Battle Riot, and I think he was gone within a month.
Yep. So he basically did their one, because they do those 4 TV tapings in a row. And so it's almost like he did the 4 TV tapings, and then he was done.
Right.
But that's, I mean, I still, right now, to me, and it's like, I mean, we can beat this. It's too close to call. I want to call Matt Taven the best, but then there's Jay White, and I haven't seen enough in-ring work out of MJF yet this year. Nobody's better on the mic than MJF, and Matt Taven isn't anywhere on MJF's level. MJF just knows how to cut a promo. He's great at it, but I haven't seen him in the ring enough to really buy into his ability in the ring. As a heel, he does a good job of being the slimy heel, the one that hides out under the rim in the last minute to win like that. But I haven't seen him have a great worked match.
Right, and this is as good time as any to roll into our All In coverage too, because we're going to talk about how we felt about All In and how it changed our opinions on pro wrestling and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. All In was the first time I ever saw MJF, and as you know, I was a bit kind of thrown for a loop when he came out there for his match with
Matt Cross.
And so I wasn't quite as into it as I would say that most of the crowd wasn't either. We just weren't expecting it. And we were hot for everything that we were expecting. But
it wasn't an unannounced match, first of all.
Right, exactly. So, but watching it back on Honor Club over the weekend, or last week, I should say, what I noticed, MJF made a cardinal rookie mistake in that match. And what I mean by that is he was yelling at Matt Cross that he was an old man, and he was going to beat him because he's an old man. Well, here's the thing. If you beat an old man, you haven't done anything because you beat an old man. If you lose to an old man, it looks even worse because you just lost to an old man.
Yeah, that was that same issue we had with Austin Taylor. Was it Austin Taylor? Austin Theory. From the Evolve show, where he started to bring in, age and personal life into the ring, and that's never a good idea.
Right.
And it was with Austin Theory. I do believe it was with Austin Theory, because just his reaction after he said it, you could tell he felt like he fucked up. Yeah. And then also MJF, I didn't see that, but you could definitely see that as being a rookie mistake. He's just so into trash talking, and his interviews and all that stuff are just because he'd just become the national champion middleweight champion for MLW. So he was in his feud with Joey Janela and MLW, and it was before the Teddy Ryan thing, the Teddy Hart thing. So that's what he did, is he trash talked. And he just took it too far there, and it did make him look like an idiot because he lost to an old man.
Right. I mean, it's that old wrestling adage that if you downgrade your opponent and you're calling them a piece of shit, then if you beat them, it means nothing because they're a piece of shit. If you lose to them, then you're terrible because you just lost to a piece of shit. So.
Right.
I mean. The best, the art of the promo is to get yourself over, but also put your opponent over, so that you don't look bad no matter what happens.
Well, it's not just the art of the promo; it's the art of heel wrestling. Is you want to make that babyface look as great as possible. Right. That's where I think like Jay White and Matt Taven have such a step up on MJF, where I haven't seen that ability out of MJF yet. I haven't seen him be able to, in the ring, make his opponent look better than he was when he got there.
Yeah, exactly.
Win or lose.
And actually, I was just looking it up, and I was incorrect. He did sign with AEW, but that contract will allow him to still continue his color commentary duties with MLW.
Okay, good.
So he'll be working with both promotions.
Well, it sounds like
it's unclear what his role will be with AEW at this time.
I don't want him in the booth.
Why?
They've already got 3 guys in there.
Yeah, but would you rather have Tony Schiavone or Alex Marvez?
I'm starting to enjoy Alex Marvez. He's gotten so much better after Double or Nothing. To the point where he was actually able to control the parts without Jim Ross in Fight for the Fallen.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like Tony Schiavone in his, I'll call it a Sean Mooney role in the road to All Out that they were doing earlier a couple months ago. So maybe that's what we'll be doing, is kind of in that Sean Mooney type role.
Speaking of Sean Mooney,
or even in a Mean Gene type role in the backstage.
Speaking of Sean Mooney, he was a guy that kind of shocked me. I guess I didn't remember him being a part of this show.
Oh yeah.
His interview with Nick Aldis, that Ian Riccaboni, I can't remember who he said it was supposed to be, Christopher Daniels or something, and it ended up being Nick Aldis. Right. But just seeing Sean Mooney again was kind of I noticed a lot of stuff that I didn't notice the first time watching it. Like I enjoyed the Matt Cross MJF match when we first saw it, but for different reasons. It was because I knew who Matt Cross was and I was excited to see him. Now going back and watching it, I loved it even more because now I know who MJF is. So I saw it from a different point of view and liked the match a whole lot more.
And speaking of seeing it from a different point of view, going back and watching it on Honor Club, I still thought it was a great show. But I can certainly see why there were people out there that did not feel the same way I did about the show, about it being, as you know, I feel it's the greatest wrestling show of all time. And I can certainly see why, if you weren't in that arena, why you weren't in that atmosphere, why you weren't feeling it with the performers and with the crowd, you would have thought it was a good show, maybe even a great show, but not an all-time great show.
It was an all-time great show. I was interested to see how you felt about it, having watched it with the commentary and everything. And I don't give a shit. I don't care if you saw it live or if you saw it in person or if you saw it on TV. It was the best show of all time. Plain and simple. You can't look at a show like this where there's that many independent wrestlers and that much collaboration between companies and think that everything is going to go off without a hitch. And that's my biggest complaint about people that complain about this show, is they talk about, Lanny Poffo kind of screwed this up, and Ian Riccaboni screwed up the interview where it was Nick Aldis, not Christopher Daniels. And those are the complaints that I'm hearing. And it's like, no, you got to realize what you saw here and how great what you saw here was. Every match on this card, again, I'll say it again, every match on this card was 3.5 stars plus. The majority of them, I would say, there were looks like 9 matches on the main card, and I would say at least 8 of them were 4-star matches. I'm still going to go on and say the last 5 matches of the night, with the exception of Jay Lethal, you take that one out, the last 5 matches of the night could have main evented any show ever and could have been the match of the night. And I still think that a year later seeing it.
Yeah. I told you, I'm interested to see how you feel about this, but because I remember on the night that we reviewed it, you thought that Cody versus Aldis was an all-time great match.
I thought it could have been a show stealer. I thought it was one that could have easily main evented. I thought it was a 5-star match, and I still do. But still, even watching a year later, Okada Skrull was still the match of the night. And still my favorite, and that's the one I'm glad I picked as my match of the year, because it still held up and was still a great, great match. Yeah,
it was. And it was actually sitting and watching at home. I would argue this is one match that I think benefited more from a rewatch than any of the other matches that I saw. The reason is because, once again, I was able to marvel at the mastery of those two to take a crowd that had been basically killed for them by not only a great performance um, by Phoenix and by Kenny Omega, but also by that appearance by Jericho,
Mm-hmm.
and slow down the match, build up the drama, get the crowd back, and just then put it on a magnificent 5-star performance.
Well,
I think all that combined to make it the match of the night.
not just that. You look at the overall story they told of Marty trying to run with the heavyweights. And even though he did his little trying to be a heavyweight spots where he tried to lift up Okada and he tried to, power slam or body slam him, power bomb him, all this stuff and couldn't get him up. Just when he hit that brain buster on Okada and he finally got him up in a suplex position was almost like it's like you saw your kid succeed at something. It was a feel good moment that he finally got him up in that position, dropped him on his head. The countering that they did in this match, the umbrella spot, I thought was still amazing even a year later.
Yeah.
I love the fact that he countered the Rainmaker twice. One with the finger spot, and then the other one where he ducked under and went around the back. Just things that you never see heavyweights do. He was able to do.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
And I love the spot where Okada's telling him, that, basically that he failed, and that's where he gets his finger broken.
Yep. Yeah, when he's counting down to the Rainmaker and everything, and he gets his finger caught. I thought that's still probably my favorite counter of the Rainmaker I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But this match not only held up, but I think I liked it better now on my third rewatch of it. Because I rewatched it, making sure that it was still my match of the year when we did our little thing at the end of last year, and now rewatching it again, I think I actually liked it more now than I did even last year when I watched it.
Yeah, and it's I don't know how I don't know. I mean, I did it's not my match of the year still, but yeah, it was still great. And I'm sorry, and maybe I missed it, but did you say how you felt about Aldis versus Cody now?
I think it's the same level that I thought last year. I think it could have easily been a match of the night. I think if it hadn't been for the fact that there were 3 other matches that were better, I think it could have easily been the match of the night. It's still a 5-star match for me. I got what you were, because we were talking off the air, and you might want to explain this, but I got what you were saying about the blood. But Nick showing his remorse for hitting Brandy, the fact that you had all the legends come down to ring, and now knowing who Sam Shaw and Tim Storm are, gave it a different feel than it did back then when I watched it a year ago and didn't know who they were. So to me, it was a good old school classic NWA match, from like the 70s, and that's what they were trying to portray, and they pulled it off. And to me, it was still a 5-star match.
Okay. See, because to me, it's an average match with 3 great moments that bring it up above that. And those 3 moments are the DDP spot in the middle of the ring on Sean Daivari, the elbow drop onto Brandy, and Aldis' reaction to it, of course, and then just the ending of it, with Cody, achieving the same thing his dad did in being the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. If you take all of that away, it's an average match, if not a little bit less than average.
I would say that. I would say if you take away all of those really great spots like that, yeah, I would definitely drop it down to 2.5 to 3 stars. I think those spots and the way they were able to pop the crowd without making it into a spectacle was well done. I liked the old school feel to it, and like I said, it brought in a little bit more watching it back now, knowing who. And you'd mentioned something about the blood, so I'm going to let you talk about that. But I do see where you're coming with that after watching it back.
Well, I mean, basically, what I said is that I can't consider a match, at least not in 2019, an all-time classic. If it's something that I'd be embarrassed to show a friend to try to get them, you know, to understand what I love about the Sport of Kings. And in my opinion, because of the spot with Cody and the blood, and what I'm talking about is Cody goes for his usual top rope to the outside dive, and all
good job, buddy.
And
Go
and
lay
all
down.
his forearms in the head, and supposedly, you know, that or he has Cody in the head, and supposedly that breaks Cody open. But there are at least 3 camera shots that show Cody's face before he goes under the table, and then comes back out, and then he's got blood all over his head. So it's clear that he went under the table, that he was having trouble blading out there. You know, he's talking to DDP. He goes under the table, cuts his forehead open, and then he comes out and he's all bloody. It's just too much. Pulling the camera back, pulling the curtain away, whatever you want to say. It's too much of the tricks being exposed right there, and it's too ludicrous. And to me, that brings it down almost as much as those 3 moments bring it up. I could never have this match 4 stars or higher.
Yeah, and I get to me that was one of those spots where I just kind of blew past it. But I know what you're saying is that I could definitely see how somebody would react by seeing that. It was just too much, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the match.
And we've talked before about how it takes all kinds of wrestling fans. I can't imagine having that same sensibility where it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of the match. That's just me, though.
Right. You know, and watching this back, the only match that I felt went too long was Paige versus Janela.
I would say it probably went maybe a minute or two too long.
See, I felt like it went about 5 minutes too long. It just got to a point where, had it not been for all of the Penelope Ford stuff, that match never could have made it 20 minutes. So the match itself, when you're looking at the 2 wrestlers, I felt like that alone went a little bit too long. I did love the...
Dude, that's like saying if George Animal Steel and Miss Elizabeth weren't at the ringside for Steamboat and Savage, it would have only gone 8 minutes. I mean, come on. It's part of the show. You can't take them out of it.
I love Penelope Ford. I think she's hot as hell, but I thought that went a little too long, and I think that's probably what was taken away from the Golden Elite and their match at the end of the night.
You think that took away from it, and not the Joey Ryan stuff at the end of it?
Well, definitely the Joey Ryan stuff too. I think if we could have taken that 10 minutes and given 7 of it to the Golden Elite match at the end, I think we would have had a much better show.
A much better show on the greatest show of all time.
Right.
What the fuck
exactly.
are you saying?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's my only negative. And, and it's different now because I'm watching this, so I know who MJF is. I knew who, I already knew who Chelsea Green and Madison Rayne and Britt Baker, but that was my first time ever seeing Tessa Blanchard. Now I know Tessa Blanchard, so her match makes more sense. I know Sam Shaw. I know Tim Storm. I know, remember seeing Sean Mooney, which I didn't remember seeing in the beginning. And then I also know Bandito and Rey Fenix now.
Right.
And I didn't know them going into this match or going into the show. So This show definitely opened my eyes a lot more to the indie scene, and I think you and I coming out of this show, where before we were like, oh, we'll watch Ring of Honor, we'll watch New Japan, those are our two go-tos. Maybe we'll watch a little NXT and maybe some WWE here and there, but that's going to be way, not even close. And then this introduced us to the NWA. This introduced us to eventually to MLW. And because I don't think I would have watched MLW if you hadn't said, hey, MJF's on MLW. I'm like, oh, I like that kid.
Yeah, well, actually, I said, I think the two things that prompted you to watch it were that I said that MJF was on there and the New Heart Foundation was on there.
Yep.
And that's what really got you into the idea of watching it.
Yep, with British Bulldog. So, and then also, I knew Joey Janela from the just online footage. I never really saw a full match of his, but watching him in the beginning of MLW and then getting to know Flip Gordon a lot more, because as much as I liked Ring of Honor, I was never really a big into Flip Gordon fan. But then watching his work and the stuff that he did against Aldis for the NWA title, trying to get on this show, and then watching the Being the Elite. And seeing the stories of Joey Ryan and Hangman Page and Lethal and Flip Gordon and all of that stuff come together, I think really increased my enjoyment of the show, and why I think I enjoyed the show even more now than I did back then.
You said that the one match, well, I think you said the one big match that you thought went too long was Page versus Janela. To me, watching it back, and I realize that you weren't a fan on this on the night, so it probably didn't equate for you. But I'm still a fan of it. But but I do feel like watching it back, it went too long. Was the ROH World Title match?
Yeah, I
still love the way it was patterned. I still love that it was a bit of a love letter to WrestleMania 3 and to what I think is one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time, in Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage from WrestleMania 7. But I do think that they took it to a bit of an extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was almost too much nostalgia for a match that could have been better had it not had all that. Lethal and Flip were putting on actually a decent match until Lanny pulls Lethal aside and makes him turn on the madness or whatever.
Right.
And then you've got Flip with his Hulk Hogan impersonation, which was kind of fun. Again, Riccaboni with a miscue, with the calling him the Ultimate Warrior there for a second. Then nope, it's an immortal, not an ultimate. And then the other real. But I see where you're coming from with that. That was a match that I think had a lot more to do with just showmanship than an actual good match. That was one of the few times on the night where I actually felt like, oh, they're just going for the laughs here. They're going for the nostalgia. They're going for the entertainment, not for the actual wrestling.
Yeah, I kind of see that point of view too. I mean, but again, it was a love letter to pro wrestling, so I think it needed a match like that.
It really did.
I just think that they took it a little bit too far, is all. I mean, if it was, I would say that if it had gone, again, 3 to 5 minutes shorter, it would have been perfect. But I remember that we had this debate, not quite this debate, but I remember that we debated, our very first show that ever aired, that
right.
that I thought it was a 5-star match, and you didn't, and I can see why. That's probably the match that my opinion changed the most on, watching it back. I still thought it was a really good match, but I would probably have it more in the 3.5-star range than the 5-star range I think I put it in night of.
Yeah, and I think I had it at a 3-star. I wasn't overly, but a lot of that, I actually liked it a little bit better, the actual wrestling part of it. Once they got into the nostalgia stuff and then the Bully Ray and the Colt Cabana stuff at the end of it, I felt like that was Colt Cabana coming down and doing the I thought was a little too much for insiders. People that watch, I thought that was a little too much for people that are fans of Ring of Honor and not for fans that are new to the show.
On the other hand, it's always a good idea when you can tell a story in a night.
Right.
And if you go back to the Battle Royal, I don't know if you went back and watched Zero Hour or not, but that Battle Royal is still my favorite Battle Royal of all time. And that actually that actually didn't just continue the story from Ring of Honor; it also continued the story from the Battle Royal.
Yeah, and I
And
guess I didn't see that. And
and so
Riccaboni did mention
and
that.
so, and so I think it and so I think while if that hadn't happened, I would agree with you. I think that there was enough done between the two in the Battle Royal because if I'm not mistaken, Colt was the last one that Bully actually eliminated in the Battle Royal. So I think we lost Jeff again. So it makes sense that it made sense to me that they did that because it was a one night story basically between Bully, Flip, and Colt. And let me see if I can get Jeff back. Are you there, Jeff? All right, I'm going to hang up and try him again here. Yeah, so I mean, if you do go back and watch All In, I would highly recommend that you watch Zero Hour as well because I think you'll get a lot more out of it for the ROH World Title match by watching Zero Hour first than you would just by watching Flip versus uh, Jay Lethal for that ROH World Title. And he's not answering. He's been having some problems with his computer lately.
Okay, that's really annoying.
Yeah, I was just telling them that you've been having some problems with your computer lately. So.
Well, that was my internet. It just shut off.
Oh, cool.
And then for some reason, and I restarted my modem twice before the show started, and it just shut off on me.
Well, you didn't make sure Arlo touched the furnace again, did you?
No, he's laying in bed. He's all bummed.
What's he doing with the furnace in bed?
Okay, settle down there, Sparky. Anyway, what were you saying about? I think we were talking.
What I was saying while you were off the air with me is that I think that if anybody's going to go back and watch All In again, they're much better off watching Zero Hour as well because you get a better sense of the overall show, especially the ROH World Title match if you watch Zero Hour.
Yeah, and that would make sense. And no, I didn't go back and watch it because it wasn't on Ring of Honor, and I couldn't find it. I didn't know where to go for it, so I just started from
YouTube?
Oh, I don't do that. I watch too much other stuff on YouTube. All right, filibuster because now there's a meltdown because the internet was off. So I'll be right back.
So again, the biggest thing for Jeff and I coming out of All In was, again, how great of a show it was, but also what it could lead to in the world of pro wrestling. How it could lead to cooperation between promotions, cooperation that that AEW has said that they want, but organizations that they thought would be friendly to them, like Ring of Honor and New Japan, have been kind of opposed to. So, hopefully that will become more of a reality in the world of pro wrestling moving forward. I mean, we're already seeing it. We're already seeing, guys kind of partner up. Like, New Japan has had partnerships with New Japan and Rev Pro and CMLL for years. But also, All Elite has partnered with AAA and with OWE in China. I believe they're working on a partnership with DDT, or not DDT, but Dragon Gate in Japan, and of course, MLW has now is now promoted with or now partnered with Pro Wrestling Noah, and I know that they just recently announced a partnership with a Lucha Libre promotion. I can't remember the name of it though. Maybe Jeff will have details on that. But I mean, basically, it's a world of these partnerships now where really what we wanted to see was a world where these larger organizations, larger indie type organizations, were cooperating with each other. So hopefully, at some point, that still comes to being. The closest promotion really that's doing that right now, surprisingly, is Impact. Impact has had shows with House of Hardcore. They've had shows with Booker T's Reality of Wrestling, with House of Glory, and their Victory Road show coming up is actually going to be in partnership with World Class Revolution. So, that's the organization right now that surprisingly is kind of following that all in model that Jeff and I wanted to see, where they're partnering with other promotions out there, trying to, I guess, give their fans the not exactly dream matches, but unusual matches you wouldn't see if they were just going with stars in their own promotion. It also, of course, gives them the opportunity to kind of have a free shot at scouting some of the indie talent that's out there and maybe getting a first crack at signing them. So it's really kind of a smart move by Impact, and who would really doubt that they would do something like that, considering who's booking them right now.
I'd love to agree with that. It sounded like you were really selling it. I just really wish I'd heard all of it.
Well, what I was saying is that, you and I coming out of All In were really hot on the idea of partnerships in the world of pro wrestling, but not just partnerships with kind of like talent sharing and, cooperation working together. And instead what's kind of happened is that there's now these almost packs of promotions, like New Japan, Ring of Honor, CML, and Rev Pro are all together.
Right.
MLW has partnered with Noah and a new Lucha Libre promotion. I can't remember the name of that one. AEW has partnered with AAA, OWE, and are working on a promotion, on a partnership with Dragon Gate. Meanwhile, Impact is the one that's out there and is working with all the other smaller indie promotions that are out there, and really kind of carrying on that same spirit of cooperation that we thought was going to be the future of wrestling a year ago.
Yeah, and you can even point to WWE, who's now got somewhat of a working partnership with, granted, I guess WWE proper doesn't, but NXT has a working partnership with Progress and with Evolve. So, I mean, even they seem to be seeing the light where that's the future of wrestling is to work together.
Well, being the WWE cynic that I am, I think, for me, I think WWE is, I see that WWE and stuff like that as trying to corner the market on talent rather than actually cooperating. But,
It's a possibility, and I would have thought that too, except for the fact that they don't just continually sign their talent. They have been sharing talent and letting them go back, like Matt Riddle and, Adam Cole and all these guys, Takara Kazawa, all those guys going back to Evolve and putting on a show there. And that's something that looks like it's being consistently done, not just was a one-off because they were on the network.
Don't be a voice of reason when I'm hating on something.
And I'm not saying this is WWE, because WWE proper, they're not going to let the Evolve guys on their show. But I've seen a lot more cross branding, not only within NXT 205 Live and NXT UK, but also with Progress and Evolve, where there's a lot more of those like 5 little mini promotions kind of working together.
Right.
Because I do look at them. I don't look at NXT and NXT UK as the same. They're 2 separate entities as far as I'm concerned. And the same thing with 205 Live. And then you've got Evolve, which has their own stuff going on, and you've got Progress, which has their own stuff going on. It just seems like they kind of get together here and there and trade some talent.
Right. Meanwhile, then you've got Impact, who's doing the kind of stuff that I think we really wanted to see, where they're working with House of Glory, they're working with Reality of Wrestling, they're working with House of Hardcore, and there was that Texas promotion they did a couple of months ago, and coming up at Victory Road, September 14th, they'll be working with World Class Revolution. So, they're doing more to kind of help out these other promotions with their talent, but also kind of give the fans a look at again give the fans a look at these other promotions too, and what their talent and give their talent more experience working with different styles.
And then you get people like Joey Ryan and Peter Avalon who are just kind of whores and going wherever. They're not really all set on one promotion. Joey Ryan is just, he'll go wherever they want to book him. And now because of the fact that it's becoming more, I guess, acceptable to work on other promotions, you see Joey Ryan doing that, where he's actually showing up on shows that you wouldn't expect him to.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
He's been with Ring of Honor. He's been with MLW. He's been with Impact. He's, kind of made his feeling known with AEW. So he's just kind of going everywhere.
Yes, him and his penis.
Yeah. Yes. Him and his penis. Yes. This is why we will never get on national radio. We swear too much and we talk about Joey Ryan's penis. No, because we talk about Joey Ryan's penis.
Oh. What is your favorite thing about Joey Ryan's penis, Jeff?
The lollipop? I don't know. The fact that it broke Tessa Blanchard's knee? Or was it Taya Valkyrie's knee? It was somebody's knee.
What did you think about the way that I opened the show talking about how the success of All In almost gave us tacit permission to, I don't know, cheat on WWE, to stray from WWE, to get rid of WWE?
I don't think this show did it. I think just the rise of independent wrestling altogether did it. Because it wasn't just this show, and this show introduced us to people that we'd never seen before. We never would have known that, we probably would have eventually someday heard about it, but this got us back into NWA with Nick Aldis. This got us into shows like you said, like MLW, because Joey Janela and MJF. This got us, talking about Impact again with Tessa Blanchard and Chelsea Green. This got us, talking and Penta and Rey Fenix. It got us talking about NJPW because of, Kenny and Okada. It got us talking about Ring of Honor because of all the people that were, Ring of Honor stars that were on here. So
and it got us to buy Honor Club.
Right, and exactly. This is the whole reason I bought Honor Club, was for All In. So, I don't necessarily think this gave us permission. I think it's been kind of a groundswell over the last couple of years, with NJPW, with Impact, with Ring of Honor. But I think this opened the floodgates to a whole nother world. Because like I said before this, I wasn't watching anything except, Ring of Honor, NXT, and NJPW. Didn't watch anything else.
We're still a long way away. I mean, there's still a lot of time to go. There's still no. I mean, they're great. They're going right now, but there's still no guarantee that all elite wrestling will be a major success and an ongoing success in the world of pro wrestling. There's just never a guarantee in this business or in life in general. But if they do sustain this positivity, if they become, if they stay the next big thing in pro wrestling, then I think we're going to look back on this and say that 4 words started a professional wrestling revolution the way that we know it now. And those 4 words are, I'll take that bet, Dave.
That's 5 words, dude.
Okay, those 5 words.
I think if you're going to look back to any phrase, I think the 3 words changed the world. is what actually is going to be looked back as the mantra for this, because that was what they rallied behind. Yes, I'll take that bet, Dave, was a huge thing, but I think the fact that Cody took that bet and they started in on how they wanted to change the world, how the elite wanted to change the world, and that's what got everybody to buy into what they were planning and what they were thinking. And they came out and they showed us that, look, we can get all these organizations together. We can get all these people talking and all these people to watch and learn. And this is what I like about AEW. And I actually said this, I think, to one of our listeners a couple weeks ago. They were able to take top stars, put them with stars that people didn't really know, and get those guys over to the point where we became interested in them. You know, putting Hangman with Joey Janela, yeah, Joey had a buzz, but he was nowhere near on Hangman's level at the time that he did this match. Putting Bandito and Rey Fenix, again, they had buzzes, but putting them in with the Golden Elite, that's what pushed them over. Just even having MJF on the card, putting Tessa and Chelsea in there with Madison Rayne, I think really kind of opened eyes to those guys too. And this is what I was saying, and it was, I don't remember, he's a columnist on LOP, but he was saying that he hates the fact that they're putting no names in with these big time stars, like when Cody had his match against Darby Allin. And to me, that's great, because that opened my eyes to Darby Allin.
That's how you fucking build stars, dude.
Exactly. And that's why I think right now they have the perfect mix of stars and young talent. And they've got it. If they can do this right and keep people interested with the Omega and Matt and Nick and Jericho and John Moxley, and they can keep people interested with them and build people like Hangman Page and MJF and some of these other talents, I think they have a strong future, and I think it's something that will survive.
What you just said is what Chris Jericho talked about today on Busted Open.
Oh,
Bully Ray asked him the question, why is Hangman Page the right guy for you to be facing for the ROH World Title at All Out? And he said, I could have been against Moxley, or I could have been against Omega, or I could have been against Cody, who all are either household names or already have their following. But who would that really have helped?
Exactly.
Being against Hangman Page, win or lose, makes Hangman Page a star. And that is, that is the genesis for whether we agree with how they set up the world title match or not, but that's why it's Hangman in that position, so that they have another household name built up. It's why also Shawn Spears is facing Cody at All Out, because they can make him a bigger star in one night. They already fucking did, actually, at Fyter Fest.
Fight for the he looked insane.
Yeah, but I mean they can do that all in one night, what WWE couldn't do in 8 years.
And the same thing when you look at Sammy Guevara and Cody facing each other on the first ever show. That's a huge rub for Sammy. When you had Hangman Page facing Kip Sabian, that benefited both guys, because Page has his following, Sabian has his following, but the two aren't really woven together. So by putting those two together, it opened people's eyes to what each of them can do. And I still disagree with the fact that I don't feel like Hangman Page is ready for this, ready to be the first ever AEW champion. But what Chris Jericho said is 110% the way I've been feeling. You've got a good mix of stars. Let's take that good mix of stars and build up these young, ridiculously talented guys. Joey Janela is talented. MJF is talented. Darby Allin, Jimmy Havoc. These guys are talented, and while they do have their followings, they don't have that big stage superstardom yet. And the only way they're going to get that is by being in these, in with these guys that do have that following.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you mentioned Darby Allin, and he's one that we forgot about when we were talking about great young stars, but he is, to me, Hammerstein he's got the body, the look, everything to be your prototypical major sports entertainment star. But I think Darby Allin is the guy that could be the next psychological star in the vein of, Cody or Jericho.
Or Kenny.
Or Bret Hart or Kenny.
Yep.
Whereas...
Or better yet, Okada. That Don Callis said it in this, and it jumped out at me again, that he compared Kazuchika Okada to Bret Hart. And that's probably the best praise you can ever give anybody, because you know it's coming, you just can't defend it.
Yep. And I'll also say that, you mentioned Sammy Guevara facing Cody on episode 1 of AEW TV. But the Bucks are doing that very same thing the very next week on AEW TV, because they're in a spotlight match against a Private Party.
Oh, nice.
So again, the three driving forces behind the promotion are using that opportunity to put over their young, up-and-coming, mostly unknown talent in their first 2 weeks on TV. When's the last time you saw the other major promotion do that even once in a month?
Yeah, when was the last time AJ Styles faced Ty Dillinger? Or,
Well, he did face Ricochet before, when Ricochet first won the U.S. title. But
Ricochet won the U.S. title. It's not like he was an unknown who was coming in, or virtually unknown, or even his first match in the promotion. He was already as an established champion because he beat a guy who beat AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. He beat probably the most dominant, take away Brock Lesnar because he's not around that much, and the fact that they've really kind of pussified Braun Strowman. Samoa Joe is probably the most dominant wrestler in the company right now. Yeah. And Ricochet beat him. So it's not like AJ against Ricochet was something that really elevated Ricochet. He was already there. It would be more like if, let's say,
and actually, I'll even correct myself further and say that since Ricochet lost that match, it was actually just more of an example of WWE doing more of their 50-50 booking.
Yep. I mean, it would be more of I guess a better example would be when Kevin Owens debuted against Cena and beat him clean in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
That was, and as much as people like to get on Cena for burying wrestlers, while I kind of sometimes agree with that, especially with what happened with Rusev, there's been so many other times where he has actually lost the feud. He lost the feud to Kevin Owens. He lost the match to Sami Zayn.
He won the next 2 matches against Owens.
No, he beat him the second time, and that was when he did the "you deserve it" thing, and Kevin Owens just demolished him in the ring.
And then he beat him the third time.
I thought he won regardless, Kevin did. My whole point is that Kevin took that rub that he got from Cena and ran with it, and became a legitimate big time star on his own. Where you see so many, and that's kind of what I'm saying here is, we got Paige going to get a huge rub from Jericho. Win or lose, he's going to get a huge rub from Jericho. Now let's just see what he does with that rub. Can he turn that rub into making people want to continue to watch him? Or is he going to be like Scott Steiner was to, or Goldberg for that matter, in the mid-2000s with WWE, where they got the rub against Triple H, but then just really didn't do anything with it?
I have all the faith in the world in Hangman Page, but you already know that.
Oh, I do too. I do too. But that's just a point I'm, just trying to make is that you can look at certain people and everyone loves to jump all over Cena. Oh, he buried that guy. He buried that guy. He buried that guy. Well, it's not necessarily him. Rusev came out better than he was going into that feud, even though he lost to Cena. He still came out looking better. It's just WWE booking threw him to the back of the line.
Yeah, I would argue that Rusev actually won the feud against Cena. He just happened to lose that last match
Right.
because
Well, he did.
he actually won the match. He just couldn't get Cena to say, hey, I quit. Where in every other situation they've ever had like that in WWE, the guy that was knocked out lost.
Loses, yeah.
So they kind of changed the rules for that particular match to keep Cena as the winner, and they never followed up with Rusev. That's the thing is in pro wrestling, it's always actually in any storytelling, it's always about the follow up.
Yeah,
And
that's
if you don't follow it up well, that's a major issue.
and you've got to have those guys come out and grab it like Kevin Owens did. Even though you said he lost the feud, in my mind for some reason I thought that he won that third match. But regardless, you said he lost the feud, so I'm going to go with that. But he didn't turn that loss to Cena into an issue. He went out and grabbed the quote unquote brass ring and ran with it. Where even though he was booked horribly and put in bad positions, he made the best of that, and they gave him an intercontinental title run. They put the universal belt on him. They were able to recognize what they had and run with it and make him a huge star. Where so many other guys just kind of try to ride the wave off of that, and they don't necessarily go out there in their next feud and put on a great series of matches with whoever they get thrown into next. They just kind of sit back and go, yeah, whatever. That's one of the reasons why I respect Cody so much. No matter what you gave Cody, he made it work. He put his all into it and he made it work. And that's why Cody is the star that Cody is because he took the ball and ran with it. Where so many other guys are like, oh, I got my payday. I got my merchandise because I was up against Cena. Now I'm just going to sit back and collect it.
It says a lot about Kevin Owens that he's back to either a hotter level or at least as hot a level as he was at the time we're talking about right now.
Right.
When it took The Miz 5 years to get back on top. When it took Bray Wyatt 5 years to get back on top. It took Owens less than a year. A year ago, you and I were sitting here talking about how they made him into a joke against Braun Strowman.
Yep.
And now he is arguably the hottest guy in the promotion again.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a testament to him and what he's able to do.
And why I wish he had not re-signed with WWE a year ago.
Right, exactly. I'm right there with you on that one. But that's just a testament to his ability and how he's able to do it. And that's what you have to do is you have to take that and run with it. You can't just go, oh, I'm in the, for Sammy Guevara. Now, I don't think Sammy Guevara, I think he's incredibly talented and I've seen him make the most out of every situation he's been in. But he's the kind of guy that can't sit back and go, oh, okay, I put on a good match against Cody in AEW's first ever show. I'm just going to ride that wave.
No, I think that, what is so great about AEW, and I don't know that you and I have even really discussed this before, but what's so great is that they have so many stars right now, but they also have a vision for each one of their guys that are young to build towards the future. They're not resting on their laurels. They're not saying, okay, so we have Cody, we have Kenny, we have the Young Bucks, and we have a great foundation for now. They're saying, what are we going to do a year from now? And that's where guys like Sammy, like Kenny, or not Kenny, like Hangman, like
MJF, Darby Allin,
even
Kip Sabian's another one.
keep saving. I was going to say Jungle Boy,
Yep.
and his dinosaur, all come into it.
Nice to see
Yeah,
Luchasaurus finally getting a run somewhere.
I think Luchasaurus is going to be a major star in the business, and I'm so glad that he's with AEW.
Yeah, and he's finally getting that rub. I mean, he was great in Lucha Underground. He was great in his appearances in Ring of Honor, but nobody ever really bought into him. And now it's nice, and maybe it's because of the whole relationship between him and Jungle Boy, but it seems like they finally found something that works with him and something that he's going to excel at.
Right.
And I love how he grunts and grunts and grunts, and then, hey, I've got a master's degree. That, to me, is just funny shit.
Yeah, he's great. He really has a great personality, and he's great in the ring. And I mean, I think what we're talking about here is how All In has turned into, this revolution of pro wrestling. I mean, it maybe didn't evolve the way that we wanted it to all the way, but I think it's still closer to the ideal world of pro wrestling that we have needed in this sport for a dozen years.
And it's continued. It's not just been, this wasn't just a one-off. I mean, yeah, there was some partnerships before this, but like you said earlier, you're really seeing partnerships become much, much more now after this was done.
Yeah, they're
than you did
now.
Before. Right, they really are. So, yeah. Yeah, it definitely changed my entire world, and I'm a much better wrestling fan now because of it.
Would you like to know? And maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't, but I know you haven't been watching the Road to All Out shows.
I just haven't had time.
Would you like to know? You and I are big fans of Tessa Blanchard, correct? She's your favorite female wrestler. She's my second favorite female wrestler. Would you like to know what other famous progeny that's a female wrestler All Elite now has on their roster?
Who?
Teal Piper.
Really?
Really. She will be making her debut at the Casino Battle Royale at All Out.
God, I really...
live in attendance for the AEW debut of Roddy Piper's daughter.
Oh my God, I hope this is not another Lacey Von Erich situation. I hope this is more of a Tessa Blanchard than a Lacey Von Erich.
Right.
But then again, Lacey didn't want to be in wrestling. From what I understand, is Teal does. So.
Yeah, she does. She was talking about on the episode of All Out, or the Road to All Out. I think it was episode 4. If you want to go back and watch it. But,
I definitely will.
But she was talking about how wrestling was an interesting dynamic growing up because as much as her dad loved it, and we've heard this from a lot of other wrestling families, that he never wanted his kids going in it, but she kind of has the bug, and she feels like this is a way to not only follow her dreams but also to honor her dad and feel closer to her dad. And I thought about that, and it's like, by becoming a pro wrestler, you kind of get a new appreciation for what your parents did, wrestling and working their way up through the business and stuff.
And now this is gonna drive me insane because I remember, and I can't remember what promotion it was. I can't even remember who the wrestler is, but I remember hearing something similar to that, where this now third generation wrestler is following in the footsteps of her grandfather.
Her grandfather, huh?
Her grandfather was a major star in the territory days, and he made her swear that she would never be a wrestler, and then after he died, she decided to become one because that was the best way she could think of to honor him. God, I wish I could remember who that was and where it was. But it was something I've watched recently.
Yeah, sorry, man, I don't know.
And I was hoping you'd seen it too. So it must not have been something we watched for the show.
Or if it was, I just totally forgot about it, but I can't imagine that being the case.
I want to say it was on Impact, but for the life of me, I can't remember.
Who could it was on Impact?
I don't know. It's going to drive me nuts. I know it's not MLW because they don't have a whole. Oh no. It was Defiant.
Okay.
It was on Defiant, and it was some female wrestler that was coming in. It was her first match ever, and they were talking about how she was. Her grandfather was this great wrestler back in the day in the 70s and so on, and she was following in his footsteps. I'll have to go back and see if I can find the episode so I can remember who it was, but.
Speaking of Defiant, also signed for the Battle Royal is Ivelisse.
Oh, good.
And apparently not actually signed to NWA as we thought she might be, Jazz.
There's one chick in Defiant, the last women's champion that I really like, and I really want her to go somewhere. I'll have to find out who she is. Well, yeah, but
that's not what you meant, apparently.
No. But it's what I wish. It's not what I meant.
Okay.
Lana Austin. No, not Lana Austin. Lizzie Styles.
And what relation is she to AJ?
She's not.
Oh. Well, that's sad.
But she is phenomenal. And I really think she would...
that's relation to AJ. She's phenomenal.
Right. I think she would make a great addition to a women's division somewhere. She's only 21 years old. She's not she's still a little bit green, but she is a great heel and a lot of fun to watch.
Well, yeah, I've heard that any woman that is thinking about being with you becomes green right away.
Ouch. That just hurt.
Yeah, I can be a bit of an asshole sometimes.
That hurt in level places that I didn't even think I had.
I didn't even know you had places.
Right. That was ouch. All right. What else you got?
I think that's pretty good. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, I think that's about all I got.
Yeah.
Nothing else. I'm hoping to get...
I just feel like it kind of changed the world, like they wanted it to.
Oh, I do too.
It definitely changed my wrestling world.
It changed mine too, and that's why I think as we go forward, if they pull this off and become a legitimate company, which lasts, and I'm going to say by last, I'm going to say more than 10 years, because What Culture, Defiant combined, I think they got about 7. And most promotions get 6 or 7 years. If they can go 10 years, I'll call that a success. And I think if that's the case, what you can say about their mantra going forward is going to be change the world. That's what they're going to be known for.
Yeah. I hope they last longer than 10 years. I mean, Impact's been around more than 10 years. So.
Oh, I do too. I mean, I hope they last forever. But, but who knows? I guess we'll find out and we'll see from here. But I really do appreciate what they did and what they brought to my world. Absolutely.
And we will be covering All Out next week, doing a preview of that, basically sequel show to the one we just talked about, as well as covering some MLW. But until then, that's pretty much all we have for this week, so I'll let Jeff hit the social media plugs, and then we'll get out of here.
Main one, hit us up on our Patreon, www.patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. It is my little baby, something I'm pushing very, very hard, and we do offer 5 different tiers at different price points. The top tier gets you access to everything, and it is a measly $10. So it's something that I feel pretty strongly about, is that not to overcharge for content, and I think $10 is a good price for what we deliver. This week I will be having up some of our non-wrestling shows. We watched the second episode of Jessica Jones and had some thoughts on that, and then we also watched we also read the third arc in the Thor God of Thunder series, the Midgard, the final days of Midgard. So that was something that we did, and I'll have it up later this week. Also, our YouTube channel. It's something that another thing that I really am trying to get going. So if you could go over there, drop a like, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. All of our shows that we do here that you're listening to are going to be on there, as well as occasionally Shane and I have other stuff to say, so we just kind of jump on and rant for a little bit. Twitter, follow me on Twitter at ReggieCoop. Follow Shane at ZanmanLOP. I always use hashtag Kingdom of Honor. That's the easiest way to find either one of us. Everything I put up there has hashtag Kingdom of Honor on it. Also, there was one other one that I wanted to plug. What was it? Oh, and also listen to us on our, you can find us on Facebook too. Just search Kingdom of Honor, where it's a skull wearing a crown in front of a ring. And you can listen to us on all of your favorite podcast sites, which is something that is a way for you to get your friends to listen to us as well. We're on a podcast site called Podcoin. We're on iTunes. We're on iHeartRadio. And I believe there was one more, isn't there?
We're on Google Play as well.
And Google Play. So, you can, if you've got friends that you think might enjoy this show, send them to those places, and they can definitely check us out that way.
And if you have friends that used to listen to our show or anything else on LOP Radio and don't know how to find us anymore, you let them know, because we're no longer on Blog Talk. We're now on Spreaker, and I think that that's kind of got lost in the shuffle. A lot of our fans don't know that. So if you have friends that are wondering what happened to LOP Radio, that's what happened to LOP Radio.
Yes, that is.
And speaking of LOP Radio, make sure you turn into the rest of the shows here on the station. Tomorrow is the Global Revolution. On Wednesday, Sports Entertainment is Dead, where Plan walks you through the dramatic impact of a past WWE show. On Thursday is IMP's LOP Radio Adventure. On Friday is The Right Side of the Pond. And then we'll be back with you next Monday to talk about MLW and also preview All Out. Until then, this is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.
G1 Climax 27. Goodbye and good night. Bang.